Well, ladies and gentlemen, it does not look like the federal judiciary is backing down anytime soon. Because thankfully, the most recent judge, I think like the second judge that put a temporary injunction on Donald Trump, has threatened to pretty much put him in bars or behind bars and hold him accountable. Why? Well, let's figure that out in today's video. This article is by Business Insider. The article is titled, Judge Orders Trump Administration to Immediately Unfreeze Federal Funding. Okay, so we already know that that him and his corrupt administration were already ordered to unfreeze federal funding. But what else does this article say? And to stop violating his rulings. Okay, so him and his corrupt administration were ordered to stop, his corrupt administration and him were ordered to unfreeze federal funding, yet they haven't. And yet, he violated the court order, as well as his administration. Why? Well, let's break it down in this latest reporting from Business Insider. By Laura Italiano and Nathan Muzomiki. And the article reads, the Trump administration is violating a federal court order by continuing to freeze funding for federal programs, a judge in Rhode Island found on Monday, which was yesterday. In a sharply wounded response, U.S. District Judge John J. McConnell Jr., who's overseeing a lawsuit brought by 22 states and the District of Columbia, ordered the administration to immediately restore and resume the funding. Where did that come from? I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. The order is the first major challenge after recent suggestions that if President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance and the Department of Government Efficiency's leader, Elon Musk, don't like what a judge orders, one option is to ignore it. Michael Paredes, who teaches constitutional law at the Columbia School, said, Over the past few days, Vance wrote on X, let's keep this in mind, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think that Vance should be putting his nose into someplace that does not concern him, and he needs to shut up. Continuing with the article. Quote, judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power, end quote, and Musk posted on his support of NX user's suggestion that Trump openly defy the courts. Meanwhile, said over the weekend that judges shouldn't be allowed to challenge recent Doge actions. Number one, Vance and Elon. Doge is not an official agency. Doge was not certified by Congress, nor were you, Elon, certified by Congress, or did you take an oath? And number two, J.D. Vance, your post in your statement, that is where you are wrong, because what Donald Trump is doing is blatantly unconstitutional and downright illegal. And as for the user that suggested he defy the order and that Elon defy the order, that user deserves to be arrested and not let out, even with a pardon from the racist bigot. Continuing with the article. Quote, that's some tough language. The judge is not messing around, end quote. Curtis told Business Insider of Monday's order. Quote, it's return fire to the extent that the Trump administration has declared that neither Congress nor the courts are allowed to question his authority, end quote. He added, McConnell said his order was a response to evidence from the plaintiff states indicating that the pause on the freeze, which he said was causing, quote, irreparable harm, end quote, and was, quote, likely unconstitutional, end quote, was being flouted. Quote, the states have presented evidence in this motion that the defendant in some cases have continued to improperly freeze federal funds and refused to resume reimbursement or disbursements of appropriated federal funds, end quote, the judge wrote. The evidence included descriptions of funding to the plaintiff's states, still being disrupted, including money from the Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Energy, the National Institutes of Health, and the Department of Health and Human Services, including funds for the Head Start program. Quote, the defendants must immediately restore frozen funding, end quote, while the court weighs the state's claims and the government's arguments on behalf of the freeze, the judge wrote. Trump's side quickly filed a notice with the court that it is appealing both the judge's original January 31st order and Monday's order. Asked whether the Trump administration would comply with the latest order, a White House spokesperson responded by criticizing the legal challenges to the president's recent executive orders. Quote, each executive order will hold up in court because every action of the Trump-Vance administration is completely lawful, Harrison Fields, who is the principal White House Deputy Secretary, said. Quote, any legal challenge against it is nothing more than an attempt to undermine the will of the American people, end quote, who elected Trump, quote, restore common sense policies, end quote, he said. Okay, two things. Most of Donald Trump's executive orders, like the one wanting to move transgender woman, if that, to men's prisons, is blatantly unconstitutional, and Donald Trump's recent order trying to end birthright citizenship is also blatantly unconstitutional. And number 3, the federal funding freeze, as well as 5 other more executive orders that are blatantly unconstitutional. So it doesn't look like these executive orders have any lawful meaning to them. This is the court order from the judge. Now it has obviously all the states that are suing Trump: New York, state of California, state of Illinois, state of Rhode Island, state of New Jersey, state of Commonwealth of Massachusetts, state of Connecticut, state of Columbia, state of Hawaii, Maryland, state of Maryland, state of Michigan, the state of Minnesota, state of Nevada, state of North Carolina, state of New Mexico, state of Oregon, state of Vermont and state of Washington and state of Wisconsin. Donald Trump, in his official capacity as President of the U.S. Office of Management, those are the plaintiffs. This is what the court order says. His office capacity as acting administrator of the U.S. Federal Emergency Management Agency, the U.S. Department, that's still his plaintiffs, the people he is being sued along with. The order states that the plaintiff states motion for enforcement of the Treasury temporary restraining order, TRO, ECF number 66, is granted. The judge says, this is again on page 2, as you can see, it is a basic proposition that all orders and judgments of courts must be complied with promptly. To which Donald Trump is not doing that. Persons who make private determinations of the law and refuse to obey an order generally risk criminal contempt if the order is ultimately ruled incorrect. The orderly and expeditious administration of justice by the courts requires that an order issued by a court with jurisdiction over the subject matter and person must be obeyed by the parties until it is reversed by orderly and proper proceedings. Madness versus Mayors, 419 U.S. 449, 458, 59, 1975. Citations, quotations, omitted, emphasize, added. The plaintiffs issued a broad, categorical, all-encompassing directive freezing federal funding. The plaintiffs, the plain language of the RTO, the TRO entered in this case, prohibits all categorical pauses or freezes in obligation or disbursements based on the OMB directive or based on the President's 2025 executive orders. Trump is also defying a defendant in the lawsuit, but holding a sitting president in contempt is a quote constitutionally complex issue and a quote totally open question, Paradise said. Quote, there are plenty of people who say that just as you can't prosecute the president, you can't hold them in contempt because it creates a separation of powers problem, he said, end quote. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that looks like it's gonna do it for today's video. Before I do end today's video, I just wanted to point a few things out. There is the federal law that Judge John McConnell could enact and go to a court or to the U.S. Marshals and in fact order the U.S. Marshals or place a warrant out for Donald Trump's arrest that states that they have an obligation to uphold federal law, and the judge has every right to do that, no matter if it is federal or not. Under U.S. constitutional law, I also got this information from Glenn Kirshner, who is a 30-year former federal prosecutor with the DOJ. Lastly, before I end today's video, if you haven't already, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, as well as share and hit the bell icon so that way you don't miss a brand new video. Lastly, please make sure you share the video, and if you haven't already, go follow me on my socials that are going to be linked down below. I am on Instagram, I'm on Snapchat, and I am on Threads. There you can be notified every time I have posted a brand new video or post a brand new video on the channel. Please help me reach my channel goal for the channel, which is 90 subscribers. We're almost there. Thank you everybody for watching, and I will see you guys and talk to you guys in the next video.